And we are live with Idriss Al Rifai. Idriss is co-founder and CEO at Flow48, currently in Barcelona. Flow48 is in Dubai, and Idriss has a very cool background. So, chief strategy and data officer at Glovo. You probably know Glovo. He's been founder and CEO at Fetchr. So, definitely a serial entrepreneur and very accomplished guy. I think you started as a political advisor, right? And a consultant
Yeah.
at BCG. Idriss, can you give us a better background and overview of what you're up to?
Yeah. So yeah, it's been I've been born and raised in France. I mean, thanks for having me, Charles. It's good to be on the podcast. So like, look, I've got a bit of a untraditional background. I used to be a professional basketball player. I played for a couple of years. Was my passion, but then like switched gear and went to the special forces. Like the equivalent of the Delta forces in the US or the SAS in the UK. I've been deployed in 13 countries. And then after that, I started building company. I built my first company. I sold it, moved to the Middle East, 2 years with BCG to prove I could be doing something normal. And then started building Fetchr, which was a great journey, 0 to 5,000 employees, 6 countries of operations. And it was the early days of VCs in the Middle East, completely different than what it is right now. Exited that company and then I moved to Glovo in Barcelona. So I'm here. I got to love the city, and the journey with Glovo was quite interesting. We were in 8 countries when I joined, 25 when I left, and we sold the company for 2.2 billion, and it was a crazy ride. And then I started building 3 years ago now, Flow48.
And is business boring compared to your ex-career as a special force and a professional athlete?
Boring? I don't know, right? Because for me, like the stress is very different, I would say, but it's also, so for me, the highest period of stress was actually when the times where Fetchr was going through tough times. For me, it was the highest level of stress. And it's true that in the special forces, like I could get killed like any day. I lost only like 2 people in operations, so which was quite low. But it's just a very different stress, very different. But it feels like for some reason you're more in control in the forces, which is maybe a bit weird as a feeling. But yeah, very different stress.
Yes, that I think as humans we're wired to externalize or stress physically, right? Like we're not wired to sit down on a chair and get
I think so,
10 to 70 micro traumas per day, psychological, emotional ones, and we don't have any ways to sort of externalize them. Well, in sports and in the army, you sort of physically control it, right? Like if you feel stress, adrenaline hits you, then it's in your body. You start running, you start ducking for cover, shouting orders, right? So I think that's the why. Tell me a bit more about let's start with the basketball career, right? How far did you go with there? Did you get to go to the Olympics? Because I watched the Paris Olympics not so long ago, and the France team did super well, right? With this very tall guy, I forgot his name. Yes, that guy is fucking elite. But how was it for you? And why did you pick basketball? Why was that sport into you back then?
Look, like I was always into sports. I was doing like ping pong back in the days, and I was in the French championship, and I remember it was like one of the first, taste of playing competitively. I played judo, but yeah, basketball really caught my attention. I thought that it was just, for me, it was the best individual collective sport, because you're only 5 people, which means that your impact on the game is very high. But still, it's a team sport, and I love the whole dynamics that happen in the team. Unfortunately, I was not tall. I mean, obviously, so I'm like 6'2", 6'3", so 1m92, 93. So I'm not small, but in the basketball world, this is very small. Like you need to be very special if you want to be professional at 190. You're always going to be the shortest guy on the team, so which means you need to bring something to the table, which I brought something to the table all the way to professional, but I thought I was never special enough to make like an impact on a professional team, let alone fulfilling my dreams, going EuroLeague or NBA, you know, like, so it was a bit of a moment when I realized that I was just, you know, at this level, I was just not the best and I could never be. So it's tough.
And what about Tony? Tony's 6'2".
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You need to have something else. He does.
What did he had?
Speed.
He
Yeah,
had
speed.
what? Oh, speed.
Speed.
Okay.
Speed. He was like 2 years younger, and he was just impossible to stop. And you know, some people are just like jump to the roof, like we say in the US, right? Or a crazy athleticism, or you know, like increase, like or just like super fast. In today's game, it's a bit different because the game relies a lot more on 3 points. So I would have been better now because I was a 3-pointer and that was my, you know, my key, right? But I was never, especially in France, athleticism. I don't know if you saw the national team, but it's very athletic. That's probably the only team that is as athletic as the US, right? In the world, pretty much. So look, where like the French basketball is extremely athletic, and I was never in that league. So you know, you have to come down to, you know, to reality and just say that it's never going to be a career.
Yeah, it's so next level nowadays, like their diets, their regimen, their physiotherapy, their use of biohacking, man, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like in the Olympics, especially not just basketball players, but everyone has like very elite routine. And I very much pick up on that as an athlete myself, but most importantly as a CEO, right? I just take all of their hacks and I implement it to biohack this brain of mine nowadays.
Yeah, and you do some extreme running, right? From what I understand. So I'm sure for you is the same, right? Recuperations and making sure that you don't explode your body on single race is super important, right?
Yeah, but I think just like you, like all the physical activity and all these crazy events that I did, it's to bring it back to my CEO and founder world, right? It's like the grit that I developed from that. Like yesterday, you know, like I have my Sunday call with my family, and then I'm like, hey, I'm gonna do 110K in Brazil. And last 100K that I did, I was sick like for a month after that, and I had like panic attacks. Like I had 2 of them after that. It really destroyed me to another level. And then my brother was like, why'd you do it? You know, and he doesn't understand because he's not a founder. You know, it's like you need that shit to get your grit to the next level, and that's how you achieve more. That's how you're happier, you're a better human being, right? You're calmer, you're more, and you went through shit, you went through hell, you know. So now everything just feels easier. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think it's focus, right? There is also a lot of like resistance, resilience, and a lot of delayed gratification, right? I think this is the best. This is the best way to, you know, to like that to show the similarities, right? Because we're so much into immediate gratification in today's world, while both sports and, you know, being a CEO is all about delayed gratification, right? Like you have nothing today. You work super hard for a couple of months and nothing happens, and then one day, boom, you know, you get your biggest client or you get a round of fund. So like things happen, and we think like it's an overnight success, and it never is, right? It's always an overnight success that has been built for the past 7 years, right? So like it's always, and sport is the same, right? You need like, who's gonna care about, you know, waking up at 4 a.m. to go for a run and that extra session you do when it's raining outside? But it just pays off. All this stuff pays off, but it's all delayed.
Right. Who's gonna carry the boats, right? Like my question on that, the follow-up question is the goal like forever delaying gratification? Because like myself nowadays, you know, when I work very hard, I might check fancy cars, you know, after that, because I love buying all these toys, you know. So then at first it was like, oh, I check it once a day if I have a really tough period. That on Facebook Marketplace, for example, and then I checked it every 3 days, and then it's every 7 days. I try to delay it as much as possible. So is the goal to forever delay it, like serotonin and rewards?
That's a philosophical question.
But also concrete one, right? Because I think it's sort of bad to give you that reward because the brain loves to indulge in it, especially if you have an addictive personality like mine. My goal, I think, would just be to forever delay it and not check any cars, then just focus on work.
But I think we have, I mean, first it's difficult to answer. And the fact that it's philosophical doesn't mean that I'm, you know, like, I think it's very interesting. That's what I meant. I'm not trying to avoid the topic. I think like the fact that as a proportions, like people who have it all, right? A lot of money that they have not fought to get, right? As a higher percentage of suicides than people who are just like struggling. So there is something in our mind that is all about trying to achieve, right? And it's not so much about the results, but it's almost this drive that we have on an everyday. It's like that feeling that our days, our struggles, our fights have a direction, right? That I think makes a lot of sense and therefore creates a lot of drive. So yeah, so for me, in a way, if I had to answer, I think I would like delayed gratification is an extremely important way to drive and to stay driven.
Right, because I think what happens also is that the brain starts finding gratification in pain and in the
Yeah,
process, right? And not in the reward. And that's the
yeah,
beauty. Like, you just like, yeah, nowadays I caught myself lately just finding deep satisfaction in being in the grind and in the struggle, like, for example, earlier this year, there were the Trump tariffs, right? And that sort of paralyzed a bunch of my clients into buying some more
yeah,
or getting new clients, right? And that affected my cash flow. But then I was like, yeah, I've been there, done that. And dude, respect. You just like keep on crunching the work, heads down, very stoic, right? And just making shit happen.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, Stoicism taught us that
And
a few thousand years ago.
right, and to your comment about like people that grew up like without that struggle. I mean, I talk to like trust fund kids every now and then, whether it's on this podcast or because I work with VCs a lot, and a lot of them, they don't even realize that they come from wealth, right? So
Yeah,
they're like lacking this consciousness, and yeah, a lot of them seems to be quite unhappy trying to find themselves, right? They're like 40, 50 years old, and they're still trying to find themselves. They haven't
yeah,
found that their purpose, their why, because they always had it all. They always had security, and
yeah,
they were never really challenged. Like at the end of the day, they're managing daddy's money
yeah.
and traveling to Monaco and just like living the life, and that they don't really know who they are and what they stand for.
Yeah. Fully agree. Yeah, fully agree. It's not that easy, right? Obviously, it's very easy to discard that and saying, it's already a much better situation than having nothing, right? But it's not.
Yes.
It's also not 100% easy, right? So I get it because it's very difficult to reinvent yourself, find new challenges, and being able to find your own path and
Yeah.
just be driven by it.
And somewhat impossible, right? Because these kids, they had daddies that were really successful and that were like, hey, this is what you're gonna do, right? Like
Yeah,
this, you're gonna be secure your full life. I want to protect you. And they never go out really of that bubble. They're conditioned to, one, always have money, and two, like daddy's like this really masculine, really powerful type of persona, like first generation wealth, right? And they're like, I'm gonna protect my kids. But is that how you would raise your kids? Let's say that you have them and obviously you're wealthy. Is that how you would educate them, or you would go like I think it's the Warren Buffett way and just give them nothing
Mhm.
and just like be like, hey, you're by your own now. I gave you the education, I gave you the knowledge. Now you swim by yourself.
Yeah, I would be more on the Warren Buffett, Shaquille O'Neal. I mean, I'm not saying Shaq is a good example on everything, but it's funny because he said so. Like when there is an anecdote where when his kid came to like for he was like 18 or 20. He was like, oh, I need like a car, and the guy said, you get a car when you get your PhD, right? Or something along those lines. When you
If
finish,
you can
when you complete
walk.
your exactly like so. It's I think you need to tie that because it's not doing any kind of favor to disconnect money from any kind of like for any kind of rewards. You still need to feel like you deserve the present, right? If you receive a present that you don't deserve, it doesn't have any value
Oh
because
yeah.
it's not attached to any emotions.
Yeah.
So you need to go through that. You need to go through the process, whatever that process
Yeah,
is.
it's a privilege, right? And I don't think we understand our privileges until the rug gets pulled
Yeah.
under us, right? Like, and yeah, I have a school for kids. It's called like couni.com, and we teach AI to 7 years old kids. And I think it's quite important that, yeah, I mean, capital is good, right? It's energy, it can fund their business, but we teach them AI and entrepreneurship at such a young age so that they can build. Obviously, we teach them other
Yeah.
things like mindset, meditations, relationships, sports, and all kinds of stuff. But I think like kids are gonna have such a hard time integrating this AI market. Like I'm not sure about you, but me,
Yeah.
my parents, they sent me to university, you know, and I was still trying to find myself back then. I discovered entrepreneurship, I think at 17 or 18, and after that it was game on. You know, I discovered my why. Even up to this day, I consider myself a founder. That's my identity, right? So what do you think next gens will be facing? Like, let's say that they're 18 and you have fucking AI agents that outwork them 10,000x.
But
How
I
can
think,
they adapt to that?
don't you think? So I think these traits are cross generational, right? These are AI or not, right? So obviously, how it doesn't matter. My point is that it does not matter how disruptive the new technologies are. You're still gonna have people who's gonna be able to, or willing, or even desiring to take risk, and others, and the majority of others who won't, right? So no question AI will change, you know, the way we work, and it's already is changing. But then I always remember, you know, like these revolutions of the Luddites, right, in the 1870s in the US, when the guys were coming into the machinery, just like into the factory, and just like, you know, destroying the machine because they feel like it's going to take their jobs, and they're not going to be able to you know, to pay, like to pay for food and to sustain for the family. So I always remember that. I always remember also, like, there is a quote from Sophocles, right, the philosopher. That's a letter that he sends to, I think, like his kid or one of his students, and he say, you know, I think that the generation, and you don't know at the beginning of the letter, it's just like, but you just like I feel like this generation is lost, that they're losing the taste to learn, and then he's like, okay, Sophocles, and I was like, okay, yeah, guys. So I think there is. We always have this kind of feeling that some of the values that are being carried in our generations might be lost in the others. But I think if you take the 20,000 feet view, I feel like this is a problem that mankind has always had, right?
Yeah,
So I think it will not, to answer your question exactly, I would say it is not going to change anything in that
yeah.
sense.
Ooh, yeah. I'm gonna counter that. I think like yeah, new gens, older gens. I think we all have strengths and our weaknesses, and they sort of equal themselves, right? And yeah, I've seen it like thousands of times. People shitting on the next generation, right? Like that's
Yeah.
definitely not me. If anything, I think they have an edge, right? A technological edge. Me, I grew up on World of Warcraft and Call of Duty and all of
Yeah.
that, like being the best in my server. And I think that gave me like an unfair advantage. I see like sometimes boomers have a really hard time in this market. They're tech illiterate. Even if COVID happened, like I mean, some of them still use pen and paper. And taking Warren for example, but Warren can do whatever he wants, right?
Yeah, it's
Like
an exception. Yeah. Yeah.
he's quite good at what he does. But the Luddites, I mean, the Luddites argument, I heard it many times on this pod. You know, it's not a machine; it's a replacement. Because me, for example, I let go of my 250 employees about 3 years ago, replaced them with AI. Never been happier and more successful. And also, if we just take the experiment to the market later on, like a company, will they hire an agent or will they hire an employee?
Mm.
Knowing that the agent doesn't fail, knowing that the agent will deliver on day one, knowing that the agent
Yeah.
learns faster and can propagate and immediately connect to their API and learn about their proprietary their data, for example. So yes, there will be humans that will manage like various agents in these companies, but what I'm saying is that let's say that I'm a student, I'm coming out and I'm looking for a job. I'm literally competing with an AI agent, knowing that at least like 70% of businesses, modern businesses, they'll be digital, right? Like there'll be in front of a screen. If it's like physical and working like
Yeah.
a robot in a shop, I do agree with you that will be a bit harder to replace. But short term, I feel it's not like a machine, right? It's really like a brain and a human. It's like a human extension, don't you think?
So you see a crumbling of employment, basically.
Yeah, yeah, big one. Starting slowly but surely. Like the only thing that's preventing the floodgates from breaking right now, I think it's one human conventions, right? So
Mhm.
humans have quote unquote ethics or comfort zone, right? They don't
Yeah.
want to go for the new tech. They're just comfortable with their current employees. There's laws as well. And last but not least, there's just OpenAI delaying the launch of Operator again for ethical reasons and not to break the world apart. Because if they do that, they're going to get a PR shitstorm, right? Everyone's going to point the finger at operator, and they're going to be like, hey, they just killed the universe. And then the company will go to flames, because humans being what they are, they'll just shit on OpenAI. People will start boycotting OpenAI. So I think that's really what they're waiting for. And that's like groundbreaking, this moment. And I'm pretty sure these are the conversations they're having behind closed walls. Maybe they're waiting for someone to deploy first, right? Their agents, and point the finger at this company, and then they'll launch after something. But maybe you've used operator yourself. It's just not complete, right? It's an agent that buys your flight ticket.
No, exactly. Look, what you're saying makes sense. Like it's what you're saying is that the level of disruptions is much higher than any other disruption that happens before, and that's what makes this change, this revolution, different than the others. It might be. And what you're saying as well is that once companies gonna cross the chasm, right? Like be like when the technology really is gonna be mainstream and not just gonna be a nice to have technological tool, then it's gonna be like disrupting completely employment.
Right. Yeah, because there's no very AGI like agent right now, because ChatGPT is always that company, right? Like ChatGPT was groundbreaking as an assistant. I mean, assistants nowadays, if you have ChatGPT can do pretty much like 95% of what they do. But who really cares? Like assistant, no one really hires a lot of them. I think assistants are definitely not gonna resist that revolution, but once they deploy ad scale, I think it's going to be pretty ground changing. I think agents, there's I'm building agents, with some of my companies, like sales agents, for example, and what they are right now, it's like you can picture like a Zapier, right? A Frankenstein Zapier, connecting all kinds of applications together, and it's more like automation than it is real agents. And I think if there's one company that's going to crack it, it's obviously OpenAI. I want to ask you a couple of more questions, because we only have 2 minutes here. You said that as a leader in special forces, you only lost two soldiers. Like, tell me like precisely about your deployment and the challenges that you faced back then, and how you solved them precisely.
Oh man, there was a lot of different missions, right? I've been in 13 countries. It goes from extraction to fact-finding missions. Team of like anywhere between 6 and 18 or 15, that's the biggest, which is very different from like typical infantry, Like the key things of like the special forces is the level of isolation we can sustain. We're literally isolated from the rest of the world. There is no supply chain. There is no and there's even missions where the chain of commands is extremely lean, right? So which means that we're like on Black Ops, for example, we're being sent without, and if we're being captured, the French government will not recognize us as operating units, right? So so it's very, I would say it's very different than the typical army, and it's also very entrepreneurship in that sense, right? Because it's very small teams that have to achieve a goal that is very precise with a short period of time, that is very intense, and where if you take Machiavelli's word, right, where the obligations of results trumps the obligations of means, right? Which the army really work on obligation of means, but the special forces really work on the opposite, on the obligation of results. So that's what really, I would never have been in the army, for example, because I would think that the level of the lack of I would say individualisms or ability to make calls on the go is fairly limited, not exactly limited, but fairly limited. Special forces is the opposite. So this is what I really liked in it, and feeling that you can make your body a machine is also a great, like sports or runner, like you really realize that you can make anything you want. I remember like our guys was telling, pain is just an information all the time. And it's true, you can do, and then he was saying like you can do whatever you want with information. You can either, cave in to that, or just take it in and just, it's pain. And we keep going,
Yeah, I'm following this guy, Truett Ains, the son of Cam Ains, which has a nice book about endurance and bow hunting, like in the David Goggins type of category.
Yeah, yeah,
And he has this saying, "It's just pain. It's just pain. It's just pain. It's a piece of
yeah.
information, like you said, and you decide what you do with it. Do you become a crybaby, or do you understand that this is growth, right? So,
Yeah.
Idriss, we need to do round two pretty soon because we only scratched the surface here. But till then, where can people find out more about you?
I mean, I think, yeah, I've got a couple of, if you go on my LinkedIn, this is probably like my biggest channel. And YouTube, you can find, like, I've done like a couple of interviews there, or, on my LinkedIn, there is a couple of pieces of interviews there as well. So, yeah.
Perfect. So that was Idriss Al Rifai.